Instead, I pulled away and went through a deep journey, even more deep about spirituality and the world through history and time, through decolonization and white supremacy and patriarchy, and how all of these things affected spirituality and our understanding of our bodies and our health and our well-being, and who had power over those things. So I really, what began as like a search for spiritual freedom.
Welcome to the Feminine Alchemy podcast, where we explore the truth about the feminine, the peaceful, the wild, and the visceral. I'm your host, Jaye Anne Beringer, joined by my co-hosts, Julie Dean Richards and Kaylee Rose. Each week, we explore the deep mysteries of the feminine and help listeners apply them to their daily lives in a practical way. Join us to unlock the hidden wisdoms your soul has been waiting for. Welcome to another episode of Feminine Alchemy. I'm your host, Jaye Anne Beringer, and I am on here with Julie Francis, the founder of Wild Radiance Collective. Oh my goodness, you guys, you're going to be so excited. You're going to love this. You're going to love this because we're talking about wild self-care. But let's talk about Julie. Julie is an astrologer, coach, and founder of the Wild Radiance Collective. She guides intuitive and empathic women and non-binary folks in their midlife who are ready to shed self-doubt, reclaim their confidence, and create a vibrant, purpose-filled life. Welcome, Julie. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to see what we chat about today.
Yeah. It can always be a wild ride. You never know what's going to happen. And that's part of what you even talk about, right? Being wild.
Yeah. And leaning into it and not being afraid of it. And that being a major part of the essence within. And wild can mean so many things to different people. And it's just finding what it means for you. And oftentimes that means how do you express that part of you, or in what parts of your life. It doesn't have to be an aesthetic. It doesn't have to be a thing that you tell everybody. It's something you experience and you feel.
I love this. I cannot wait to hear what juicy bits of goodness you're going to share with us today about this. But let's start with our first question. What is your sun, moon, and rising, and how do you relate to that?
Good question. I'm Sagittarius sun, Sagittarius moon, and Cancer rising, and I relate to it really well. I have a Sagittarius stellium, and it's in my 6th house. Sixth house is a really tough house to get to know. So there's that dynamic of coming to understand your birth chart and what that means for you. But through the style of Sagittarius, of this enthusiastic, upbeat, optimistic, energetic, adventurous energy. And sometimes it feels like it's in direct conflict with being Cancer rising. Like I feel like I insult myself sometimes. It's getting better as I've become older. And I'm more aware, and definitely working with my chart so extensively has changed that so much as well. I resonate with it very well. I make things make a lot of sense because of that dynamic of like, I want to go be free. I want to be home and cozy. Like those different kinds of things. Like it's like once I could see it on paper and look at my birth chart and be like, I was like, okay, cool. Like this makes sense. And it removed that shame of like, well, you're supposed to want to be adventurous, or you're supposed to be feeling okay about home. But I want both. I want to go on wild adventures, and I want to come home and have a really safe, nurturing space to be in.
You have a home, you have a home-based business about being wild.
Yeah, exactly. So currently Wild Radiance, the name, part of how it came into being is that we live on a 40+ acre farm, and Wild Radiance is what I feel when I'm out on the farm looking up at the night sky. You just feel that. You feel the land. We've renatured a lot of the farm. We have old barns and outbuildings and a large garden, but primarily we've turned the old fields into hiking trails. And this year we are actually planning on turning them over into wildflower fields for the birds and bees and pollinators and things. And what's amazing and sad, we've spoke about grief a little bit when you and I were chatting before. And we're actually moving. We just confirmed this. Husband has accepted this amazing job opportunity. It's going to be an amazing move for our family. Totally different lifestyle, totally different home. And what I'm very sad about the legacy we're never going to have here. At least that's in this moment, that's what it feels like. It's the legacy that I've been working towards and building in my business and then in our home, was that we were going to be able to have, conservation events and education, nature education and community events here and things like that. And at this point that may not happen, but with Wild Radiance Collective and the energy that I've created it with by being here in this space, in a very nurturing space. And Wild Radiance Collective came to be while Jupiter is in Gemini in my 12th house. So it's all very okay, great. Now, even though we're leaving this physical space, I'm bringing a very big aspect of it with me and within me through my business and the work and how I connect with people and my values. So it's a mid-journey point right now.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing all of that beautiful, raw emotion around this. I think a lot of people, we go through this silently. We go through this in our heads, but to hear you say this out loud, it's just that example is just going to help a lot of people listen to that and go, this is what Julie's dealing with. This is how she's handling it. And my situation may be slightly different, but now I can see a reference point. So that is so great.
Thank you. Great. Yeah. And that's a really good point, is that sometimes when we make ourselves vulnerable and we think, people aren't experiencing what I'm experiencing, or, I don't know how to explain it right. None of that matters. It's creating these touch points where somebody can find something that resonates or they identify with, or even just that moment of vulnerability where we're I don't know what's going on and it hurts, but I'm happy and I'm not sure what to make of it all. Sometimes that is just enough to invite somebody else to be okay. Yeah. And I think, and it's so foundational to both of our work, that what we do, that we invite people into that space for sure.
Is there anything else you want to share about how you got into this? Because I think that you touched on it, but what was kind of the origin story of getting into Wild Radiance, aside from the beautiful container you were in?
Yeah, I know. I'm so lucky, so fortunate. So it's a long storied journey that began in 2011, 2012, when I started to feel a pull towards wanting to feel more meaning and purpose in my life. I was feeling a spiritual calling, and I was in my 20s, and I went on what I called the Great Church Search. So given my upbringing of Catholicism and my understanding of church and having friends that were Christian and things like that, my immediate thing was to re-identify with that through churches. So basically, I'm going to give you the very short version here because I've found that I can talk way too long about this. I have Mercury in Sagittarius, which is wonderful and not too concise. So what ended up happening was that during this period of time, one of the first spiritual modalities that I really dove into after exploring different churches, and I landed on a Unitarian Universalist church in my community. It was the place I felt safest and most called to as far as a community space go. But in my own life and in my own reading, I was reading about paganism and just learning about spirituality through time and things. So I really, when things started to propel forward for me, was when I became a Reiki practitioner. And very rapidly through this time, over the next several years, I became a yoga teacher. I expanded my certifications to being a Reiki master teacher. I was working with my students and offering sessions. And this was a really profound period of growth for me, and one of the most difficult period of times in my life. I ended up in a marriage that was not healthy, and it was these practices and these things that helped me go forward. And during this time, I had recurring health issues shown up, which had shown up prior to the beginning of what I call my Great Church Search. So we're looking at this almost 10-year span of time while I was going through life and these experiences that are really pivotal for me, while managing really random chronic health conditions and experiences that people couldn't explain what was going on with my body, or it took a long time to figure out. And so during this time of physical manifestation of, health issues, and then having this yearning for a deeper connection spiritually, really brought me into the field of holistic well-being. from there, just I've been doing this kind of work for over 10 years now, and I never landed on exactly what I wanted to work with people the most for a long time. And when 2020 came around and we're all, pulling in because of the pandemic, I had really thought that I would be teaching yoga again during that time. But instead, I pulled away and went through a deep journey, even more deep, about spirituality and the world through history and time, through decolonization and white supremacy and patriarchy, and how all of these things affected spirituality and our understanding of our bodies and our health and our well-being, and who had power over those things. So I really, what began as like a search for spiritual freedom kind of propelled itself into creating a social justice advocate in me. So I went through this very long period of time where I was thinking and learning and researching and making all these connections across all these different fields and topics. And it was very in here, and it was very just like, okay, I'm figuring this out, I'm understanding, and also I'm healing my own connection to my body and my mind and my spirit. And then a couple years later, so 2021, 2022, really, I took a number of different trainings and had experiences that really solidified for me, like, okay, I'm ready to put all of these things I'm experiencing into something. I just have to figure out what that something is. Life doesn't stop when we're trying to figure these things out. It's not like this, okay, I'm going to go from here to here. We're good, right? Now we're done. I've got the lesson. I keep going. No, like what ended up happening was I still continue to have unusual health issues. It seems like I believe in free will, but it does feel like a very faded part of my journey. And it is connected to my birth chart. So that gives me like some peace, like, okay, this is that. But I went through a very long period of time there where like life lessons related to having children, being pregnant, having babies, having a traumatic birth, losing babies. And I'm like, okay, like here we are, like I'm going towards 40, like I was in my mid 30s, and mid to late 30s. And you're like, what am I doing? Like I kind of know what I'm doing, but like, what am I doing? And it was during that time, during the pandemic, as I transitioned away from realizing that while I love yoga and, asana and teaching and experiencing the whole depth that Sanatana Dharma has to offer and studying the Vedas and things like that, I'm like, that's not mine to teach. It's not, it doesn't feel like it's mine to teach. So it's a major part of my life. It's a major part of how I work with people, how I think, my worldview. But I'm like, that's not mine to teach anymore. And so even though I had this foundational spiritual practice that also included other aspects of my ancestral, spiritual practices and things like that, I felt really lost. And I lost my footing, and it was like I needed like a jump start. And during that time, I was like, I'm going to learn more about astrology. And so I did. And very quickly, I was like, I think this is the thing. I was like, this is the thing. And it took me a long time to figure out how to translate why I thought this was the thing and how that meant that I would then work with people and what that meant. And astrology guided me through the traumatic birth experience. It guided me through major job transitions during the pandemic. I was pregnant and working in an emergency room during the pandemic. And my husband was deployed for the National Guard, and he works in emergency services anyways. He worked at the fire department. So two of us, emergency services, pregnant, like it was a lot. So when navigating that and going through that, and then having my first miscarriage thereafter, I was struggling and uncertain and like, this is what I want. This is what I want in my life. I want to have more children. I want my family. I want these things. And they weren't happening. So with all this uncertainty, I was leaning into astrology more and really understanding my birth chart, not just natally, but like how it was being impacted by the current astrology. This was pivotal for me. And it's become a major part of my works.
Hey friends, it's Julie. I'm just popping in here real quick to tell you about a very special invitation we have for you. If you have been feeling deeply called to learn more about your feminine identity, or to see what feminine power really is, or you're just loving the podcast, then Kaylee and I would love to invite you to join our community, Feminine Alchemist. Inside, we host live monthly women's circles, challenges, and Wheel of the Year celebrations. They are seriously so much fun. We have monthly workshops where we bring in experts to teach on anything from menstruation to mythology. You'll also get access to our library of courses about astrology, intuition techniques, sacred embodiment, and cyclical living. And most importantly, you'll be able to connect with women who are like-hearted and walking the same path as you. So if this sounds exciting to you, join today by clicking the link in the show notes or going to femininealchemist.com. That's alchemist spelled M-Y-S-T. Okay, back to the episode.
So when I'm going through this and I'm working through it, I'm like, okay, I've got this, I'm figuring this out. I don't know what I'm doing for my main job. I know I've got my business on the side, like I'm doing all these things. I think the turning point for me really was the second miscarriage. The first one was pretty traumatic. It was very unusual. Going back to that pattern of unusual health issues that come up for me, or experiences, or things that you're just like, how do these weird ass things keep happening to me? Like, it's really odd. Like that 1% or like that 0.5%, like that's me for a lot of these things that happen in my life. And when I was able to come through the second miscarriage, the job confusion, having a child that I shared with a previous partner, and co-parenting and all that, I was really able to find my footing. Like I was like, okay, I'm actually really clear about what's going on. Doesn't mean I like it. It doesn't mean it feels good. It doesn't mean like it's what I really want, but I'm really understanding the energy that's going out to me. And so going back to becoming a Reiki practitioner, like as soon as I was invited into a space where I could connect with energy, I felt alive. I just felt like this makes sense to me. And so in drawing that through my astrology practice, and how I understand the world and how I'm experiencing things is a big part of why this came to be, because I could hold space for myself. I could be like, this period of time, because astrology is a study of the quality of time. This period of time is going to be hard. And here's why. And these are the things that might come up for me. And I'm going to be with that. Obviously hope maybe things go a certain way while knowing that it's very possible they won't. And being able to hold yourself in that self-awareness and being compassionate and understanding for yourself, but then also, as you become more of a practiced astrology student or practitioner, you're realizing you're also holding space for others at the same time as you're doing this. And it really drives home that interconnectedness that we all have, the way we interconnect with one another. For me, astrology is just how I now completely interact with the world. It's how I experience so many connections, and I have found that I can really help others draw those connections through when I work with them. And I was driven to, when I figured out this was it, I was driven to work with people because I was like, this helped me through some of the worst times of my life. Like, I wish I had astrology when I was going through my divorce. I did not. But my clients that I help guide when they're going through divorces or co-parenting, it helps them a lot. So I wish I could have made that drop in my lap as a tool back then, I would have. But, it comes to you when you're ready and when you need it. And what I want more than anything else is people to be able to share their wild radiance. Like, I want them to have the holistic well-being. I want them to have that connection with themselves and their intuition and compassion for themselves and others. And for me, doing that it does feel very Sagittarius, is that wild radiance.
I love this. And once again, I think a lot of people can relate. I think it's tricky sometimes for people to wrap their heads around astrology because they first start to think about astrology as like horoscopes in the newspaper, and no one reads newspapers anymore, or like in 17 magazine, and it's like, it's all dumb. But the way you described it, that it was, well, this period of time was tricky for me, and these are my challenges, and I can sort of quantify that and go, okay, I think it gives a level of trust that this isn't forever. Whatever I'm dealing with is really, really hard, and it's not forever. And I can look to certain tools and techniques for this specific time period of my life to cope, strategize, whatever it is that I need. And I can do it with like grace and ease because I have this tool, right? Like that's kind of what you're demonstrating with your whole life. And anyone else who's out there, like, I think there's a lot of women who are in the potential, or people in general, right? We have a lot of female listeners specifically here, but the people who are dealing with what you just talked about, like, I wish I had astrology when I went through divorce, like that's a huge one. I think there are a lot of people who are afraid to go through it because they feel lost and they don't feel like they can handle the stress. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal. And co-parenting is insane.
Yes.
I've been there.
Yes. Learning. It's funny. I don't have my former husband's birth time. But I notice patterns, and I've pulled the general chart, and it helps me to map when things might get a little dicey or heated or unexpected. Or, it's funny. And this is partially just because in our modern lives, we only have the capacity so much, but I'm not able to recognize the patterns in the current astrology for like lulls or quietness of what they're doing. But the hot spots for sure. I'm like, okay, let's watch out for that. I haven't quite figured out Pluto in Aquarius yet, or for anybody that's listening that knows some about astrology. So as Cancer rising, I have Aquarius in my 8th house, and your 8th house is all about, collaborative resources. It's about transformation, death and rebirth. And it's also about your mental health, but it can be very specifically about things like debt and taxes and inheritance. So the way our collaborative resources really entwine ourselves in having been married and then divorced when Pluto was in Capricorn in my 7th house of partnerships and one-to-one collaborations. When Pluto moved into Aquarius, I was like, okay, so like, what does this mean for that part of my life? And the very present parts of my life with my current husband and our life and like how things are evolving, I can see the breadcrumbs. Don't have enough data on the other stuff yet. And it's possible it's because it's becoming more subdued, in the major lessons that needed to come through there have come through to some extent. And honestly, astrology can be so darn literal. The things that I really can pinpoint to the 8th house, I'm like, really? Like, you couldn't be more creative than that? Like, not to astrology, but to like my former partner, like, this is really what we're doing. So I just, and you said it so well. I just love that astrology reminds us that things are not forever and that we can have trust in something. I often, like, people ask me a lot, like, you actually believe in this stuff? Or like, you believe that? Or like, I don't believe it, but they still want to know. They're still like, okay, yeah, so what's up? And the thing is, you do not have to be a diehard believer astrologer or astrology to like gain something from it. Because astrology is very much about self-awareness and self-discovery and giving yourself space for reflection. So, be a cynic all you want, but pull up a chair and see what resonates, because I'm sure something will come through, like, that's my experience, and that's what I tell
love
people.
That. Be a cynic and pull up a chair because you're gonna like this. I love it. So everything changed for you in 2020, and so I'm just really curious. What do you have around the 23 degrees of Capricorn, where that, or anything aspecting that great conjunction that was going on in early 2020? And if you're not an astrology nerd like me, you're gonna learn something to be fun.
Yes. So I have Jupiter at 18 degrees. Yeah. Yeah.
So everything just expanded for you.
So it was and I have Neptune in Capricorn as well, early, 1 degree. So, and I use whole signs. I'm not sure what house system you use, but I use whole signs. I find that it works best for my own experience and what resonates with me, and then how I work with my clients and stuff. But you never know how it's going to pan out. And when people, sometimes it's interesting when I'm chatting with people and we're like, okay, well, what's going to come up for me? I'm like, okay, well, like, let's talk about it. Like, these kinds of things will come up, like, without even having them tell me like what's going on with their life. I'll be able to say, okay, these are the kinds of things that could possibly come up for you. And what often happens is either I say specifically what's kind of going on for them, or I say exactly what they needed to hear for them to go, yep, this. And then they can draw a very specific example. And you need to give yourself that space to think about things and kind of like let them wash over you.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. And I don't sit here and to be like I know astrology it's an ancient system. It's around for thousands of years. And I don't claim to know like exactly how it works or why, and I don't care. I'm like, I have studied this practice. I utilize it, I interpret it. Other than telling you that I have studied it extensively, I can't tell you why this absolutely mystical, amazing thing works. And I don't need to, because that's not a part of what I need. Some people do. It's a journey.
Yeah, it is. So where does the wildness come into your practice?
So for me, I want people to figure out what wild means for them. So it's about freedom. It's about that carefree. And for me, when I envision this, it's very much like we're like wild horses. Like we're talking, it's like a lot of Sagittarius kind of energy, like that wind blowing through your hair. That for me, it's that wildness that I feel when I see awesome waves coming onto the shore, when I'm running out with my boogie board, or even most recently, like when I'm teaching my kids to boogie board. For me, wildness, for me personally, is often a very physical experience. It's physical activity. It's doing things that are hard. It's sweating. It's also really creative. So singing, playing instruments, allowing my voice to come through, allowing myself to sing terrible songs. Like for me, it's a very physical, sensual experience in those ways that can become tangible. So like music can become tangible when we dance. Like I love dancing, and song and the singing is tangible because it's coming through your body. It's resonating through, like there's something there that if you can listen to music all you want, but that thing that happens when you sing will only happen when you yourself sing. So that's for me, my wild experience. But so many people aren't into that kind of thing. Wild for them can be the way that they dress. It can be the way that they behave at their job. It could be, how, and what I would mean by that is like, how do they own who they are? How are they expressing themselves? And what do they need to draw that wild radiance out so that they have that inner vitality? And I don't think I've said that yet. So the wild radiance is very much to me about how we stoke that inner fire, that inner vitality that allows us to share this essence of who we are with the world. And for me, like if we can't share our wild radiance, we've got to figure out why, because something's holding us back. And while everybody has different experiences and practices and tools on how we can do like some of these same things, like in your work, I know that a big part of your work is love and having that, and that being like a really home base for you and how you navigate with your clients. So for me, having wild radiance as that like nuclear core is like, okay, let's dive in. And we get there. And the journeys, while they're not always the same and they might not be uncovered in the same way, we get to that same desired place, that same desired outcome, and when I say same, I just mean, on that relative, because we're all what we need or experience, and that is also different for each of us.
Yeah, it's the same thing it's probably a feeling. It's probably a feeling of feeling like ourselves. It's probably that feeling of being expressive from a place of self rather than trying to think about what other people might want me to do. And that wildness, we gotta lean into it, or else we're going to stay small and we're not going to do what we really need to do. And that is like the most Jupiter stuff. That's how we find our personality. Look at Jupiter, guys.
yeah. And I do have that stellium in Sagittarius, so there's a lot going on. It is hard because I definitely have had shiny object syndrome over the years, and like I have just an appetite for learning and understanding and wisdom, and I don't want to just always. Sometimes I do simply want to know something, like, oh, I got to research this like completely. And I'll be like, okay, that was great. That was awesome. And that's enough for me. But sometimes there's whatever the things that I'm drawn to the most that I'm like, no, I've got to pick this apart and I've got to work it and I've got to integrate it in my life in a very specific way. Those are the things that I know that propel me forward. these other little things, they're necessary, these rabbit holes, these learning experiences, but it's those hardcore dive-ins. Like there's this author who once said, and she was a tarot reader, and in the way she was describing this, she was like, when I was learning tarot, I was a mom, primary caregiver of my kids, had like 2 or 3 young children. And having, as you know, younger children closer together in age is wonderful and maddening. So like, like it's a lot. And she was like, I wanted to learn tarot. I spent every waking moment between doing the things I had to for my job, for caring for my kids, for doing the house, learning tarot. And I learned that, actually heard that quote in like 2020, maybe 2021. And it was just last year that it popped in my mind, and I reflected on that, and I was like, holy shit, that's exactly what I did with astrology. Like every single moment, I'm just learning and experiencing and making connections. Like every free moment, I have never in my life given one specific thing that kind of dedication, which for me is, Sagittarius is amazing. It's amazing. And so as you know, like Cancer rising, you have Pisces in your 9th house, which is going to be your house of astrology and spirituality and religion and faith, and among other things. But Pisces takes you on a journey as well. So yeah, there's nothing too woo for me. I'm always like, oh, I'll learn. It might not stay with me. It might not be the thing that I keep with me, but I'll go in all different directions to learn that third.
This. What is something that you would tell the old Catholic version of yourself today?
So I'll preface that by saying I was the 4th child of an older parents. So by the time I came around, we were not that much into parenting. we were not that much into being home. We were also not that much into church. My closest brother, closest in age to me, is 6 years older to me. And I want to say that he got the most Catholic upbringing out of all of us. My parents really went all in on him. Like really did. So for me, and with the dynamic of my family, who, and ended up, not that so my family ended up separating and breaking up when I was like 14. And so during those times, we were not devout Catholics. Not that my parents shared with me, not that I remember one Christmas, my dad was like, we're going to read the Bible. And if you knew my dad today, you'd be like, what the fuck? Like, you'd be like, we're doing that. But what he was trying to do was he was trying to give us values. And my brother and I sat there and we did this in this one Christmas that I remember. So all that to say, what being Catholic did mean for me as a small child when we were going more often was being afraid of the priest, being afraid that I would randomly swear or say something really loud, bad in the pews during a service. And I'm very aware that the things that I learned were absorbed. They're not things I can say to you, this person said this person taught me this. It became like a part of me. So that fear. Now, my mom did grow up very Catholic, like nuns, the whole 9, like very, very intense. Her stories she tells me make me really uncomfortable. So I know some of that, a lot of my perception and my views came through her, even if she wasn't specifically saying, I'm Catholic, we're Catholic, this is what we're doing. It was just her worldview, the way she was. So I would also say the things that I learned that were absolutely beautiful, I also absorbed. So the mystical, my love for angels, have such a connection with angels and always have. It's completely unexplainable. I have no idea, but I do on a conscious level and like logical level attribute it to the Catholic upbringing. And one of the things that I think with being Catholic and someone who's open to other possibilities, other energies, is that because Catholicism has so many pagan roots drawn from different historical contexts and regions, that it allows you to have mystical experiences. It allows for some unknowns. So yes, Catholicism has been extremely damaging and hurtful and harmed so many people as they are emerging and finding other ways to be in the world. It has also allowed this, like what I would describe as like a hidden space within you that you carry with you all the time to just be there. And it's like if I were to describe it, I would say in that space, the divine feminine is in that space. And nobody's necessarily naming it, but if you dig and you look in the right places, you can find text, you can find information, you can make connections. And angels, so many cultures and religions around the world have ideas of angels. You know, what are angels more than just this understanding of a divine unconditional love energy? And you know, Catholicism offers some of those things, whereas some of the other Christian or, you know, certain types of religions, they don't allow that space. I do think that's something to be thankful for. And I do think we can attribute it to the roots, the pagan roots of Catholicism. So I would say learn both sides. Learn the parts of you that feel darker or heavier and how you might have absorbed them. And then I would reflect on, what are the things that are allowing me to have certain feelings or ideas or experiences? I would do that. And then the last thing I would say is, on a very concrete level, look at the history of Catholicism. Look at Catholicism through the lens of colonization and oppression and suppression and racism and all of the ways that power becomes an imbalanced system. And I would say, just reflect on that. I'm not saying don't be Catholic, you know, change your views. All I'm saying is check it out and see what comes up for you, because you might be surprised what it helps you unearth about your own life. So for so many of us as I don't want to speak for everybody, but for so very many white Americans, Christianity or Catholicism is something that they've experienced in their life. So from your space in the world you are today, in your community, in whatever dynamics are going on around you, thinking about that thread through time of when it began to where we are now, and how do you see that show up in your life? So that would be my invitation also.
Love this. I love this. I would like to, you've been very conservative in keeping it to your experience in Catholicism. Also, every Christian religion is based on Catholicism at either a structural level or, I mean, a lot of the principles are the same. And in my work with people healing religious wounds, it's wild how similar childhood two people from totally different Christian backgrounds come from, how similar their fears and experiences are. So thank you for speaking to that. And also, if you're wrestling with this, and I know a lot of people are wrestling with this right now, if you're wrestling with this is a space and a place to look at. This is a space and a place, even if you're not Catholic or you didn't grow up Catholic, but you grew up a different kind of Christian or you have that in your life. Just like you're saying, look at the history. Where are the spaces that we can glean that are good? And what do we need to leave behind? And what do we need to release in our personal lives and also on a larger scale? Yeah. Thank you for that. That was so well stated when you went through all of those pieces. So good. So good.
Thank you. I'm glad it came through clearly, because it's one of those things, your mind expands and you're like, okay, let's make sure this comes out in a clear streamline of thought.
Where are the logical dots instead of ones that look like this?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey friends, it's Jaye Anne here. If you have been feeling really stressed out about the world lately, you are not alone. There's been enough crazy and fear flying around the internet that even I've been knocked off my rocker sometimes. But it's times like these that I'm really grateful for the tools I have to regulate my nervous system. I developed these tools for myself when I was going through the thick of it. My babies were young and I had a ton of repressed anger. And these tools help me through other stressful times, including negotiating my own divorce, having difficult money conversations, and of course, the whole COVID experience. And I've put all these tools in a method I call the authentic self-care method. This is different than other self-care programs because it is a framework for you to find your special sauce when it comes to self-care. And let me tell you a secret. Step 1 is not take a bath, get a haircut, or go to the gym. Step 1 is regulate your nervous system. And that's exactly what we do inside the 3-in-1 membership. This powerful program includes focused journals and meditations you can do in just a few minutes, like the fight or flight session, the hippocampus session, which rewrites your ability to see new possibilities, and the vagus nerve session, which helps you regulate your whole body in a crisis. Using these tools, members have reported feeling more empowered, more expansive, and many experience relief from actual physical pain, all for less than $2 a day. So join the 3-in-1 membership now so you can learn these tools today. The world is not going to become less crazy. The only thing you can control is how you respond to it. The 3-in-1 membership will help you do that, so click the link in the show notes to enroll today. How can people connect with you and work with you one-to-one? Because after this conversation, I'm sure a lot of people are going to want an astrological reading, especially if they're going through divorce or have religion issues, questions they're wrestling with. Where do people find you? What do they do?
Yeah, I would love working with people in group settings or one-to-one. And you can connect with me on my website, wildradiancecollective.com. And we also, we're really proud of our Instagram page. The handle is at Wild Radiance Collective. So we, I should say, I offer one-to-one consultations and readings and a membership, but I also offer events. We're a community and offering a lot of ways for people to reconnect with themselves and their intuition and their wild radiance. So definitely, if you're interested in, an astrology reading or a consultation, I offer free consultations for the first one. These are really transformative. They're very insightful. And even one consultation makes you go, wow. And I think that the tools that astrology offers are best experienced when you have somebody to reflect on with, especially when you're new to it. So I offer these astrology consultations. They're live on Zoom. And I also have a membership that is just launching. It's actually open for enrollment right now. And I really love this because we talk about all of the current astrology that's going on. And not only does it give you an overview of what's going on, but you also get personalized guidance and support from me directly about what's coming up for you. And I think of it as like, I'm like your back pocket astrologer. Like when we're in membership, we're in community, and we have like all these cosmic besties, which I super love because I love community and connecting with people so much. But also like, that question or that confusion or that accountability or that moment where you're just like, oh my gosh, like what's going on? Having somebody that can, help you guide you back to what's going on with your birth chart, allow that space for you to like reflect and to provide guidance if that's what is, asked is amazing. And astrology includes all aspects of life. And I'm especially passionate about people. I'm especially passionate about parents and moms and people in midlife because those are my lived experiences. And I've experienced some hardships, as we all do. And I love empowering people.
Yes. Giving people that sense of their own power is so rewarding in this work. What is one thing that you'd like to leave everybody with before we sign off here?
I would say tune in to something that's lighting you up right now. I know the world is a lot. I know our personal lives are intense, and you layer on the things that are going on in our own country, and then you layer on the things that are going on internationally. It's a lot, and we can't tackle it all. And we can't tackle it all at once, but we can make sure we remain resourced and that we're providing our best selves in any moment given possible to others and to ourselves, because that is a contribution. And our best selves is not, I want to call it like a moving target. It's not like a point that you get to and you're like, this is me, I'm my best self. No, I mean like on any given day, just strive for what stokes that inner vitality. Think about what your wild radiance is. And for me, as someone that's very visual, when I think about these things, like that helps me. But maybe for somebody else that's writing it down, like, What makes me feel like vital? Feel my inner vitality. What makes me think I'm having this expression of wild radiance? And how do I want to use that in my life? Just thinking about that for a few minutes, drawing it, painting it, singing it, like whatever it is, move it. There's so many ways. I don't want to limit people's imaginations, but just stoke that fire because we need it and it's important.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much for being here. Everybody go to wildradiancecollective.com and find Julie everywhere. She is amazing, and work with her if that's what you're feeling called for. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. Please make sure to give us a 5-star rating wherever you are listening and share with someone you know. See you next week.